Magic. Zach's on your left, Oliver is on your right, and we will begin things. Zach, unfortunately for him, he lost his first match. Oliver won his, so Oliver could be one step closer to getting a bye in day number 2 of competition. He'll start things off by cracking a Misty Rainforest. We'll see what he wants to find. It's a snow-covered forest. Snow-covered lands. That's where we're at, baby. Little astrolabe.
Yep.
Talk to me about it.
Well, it draws a card at a very low opportunity cost, and it is a game object that synergizes with other game objects.
A couple of baubles and a gilded goose. Okay.
That's kind of the whole thing.
I got it. Appreciate that.
And it allows these snow decks to play numerous colors without getting color screws frequently.
Sure
because
does.
part of the conceit of playing snow is that you have to play with a lot of basics, and it can be hard to play multicolor decks under that constraint. But the Astrolabe fixes that as well. More news at 11.
Which is how long we'll be here, probably.
Yeah, no, that's actually about right.
Yeah, till
7 o'clock now,
that's
local.
Right.
This is like the old tour days.
Yeah, see, I know some people, the players out there, they're a little tired. Matthias should be used to it. Emma might be wearing down a little bit. We're just getting into it right now.
My body's got a lot of reps under these conditions.
Oh, yeah. This is nothing. I've been there when they've been packing up the convention center. Plenty of trucks. Here is an Astrolabe off of snow-covered plains. Bobble trigger real quick here for Oliver. He's going to take a look at his top card. We'll see if he wants to take a look at Zach's top card, too. He does not. So Zach will draw a card. Oliver's going to draw a card from his bauble and draw a card for his turn.
Interesting that Tomajko would choose to look at his own deck with no way to shuffle.
So surprised.
Rather than Alan.
Yeah.
Don't you want to know what's going on over there?
Well, apparently not. There's Oko. Okay. I had a feeling he had Oko in his deck. Okay. I had a feeling. We're going to have to get that graphic updated. We can take care of that later. We're going to head back over to Zach Allen now.
So Alan's going to have a really tough time generating a text box for the rest of the game. You can see him sort of furrowing his brow a little bit.
Yeah.
It's because I think his deck is mostly composed of cards with abilities, and those are going to be tricky to use for the remainder of the game.
There's a snow-covered forest. Noble Hierarch. We got some sincere catching up to do right now for Zach Allen. Alright, bobble you now. Alright, back to Oliver. He'll draw from bobble. He'll draw for the turn. I think the only thing that, if you're Oliver, you have to play around this turn is exactly Path Exile. You don't really have to worry about anything else. Now, over the course of the game, obviously things are going to get a lot more complicated, but for now, an Astrolabe and drawing a card is a good place to start.
I think Alan has a main deck Force of Negation. Not that that matters all that much, but just... And you probably would have seen it last turn on the...
On the Oko?
Probably.
Yeah, it's probably a good card to counter.
Don't know for sure, but I would guess.
One could make an argument.
You know, because Alan's not going to be able to have a card in play that matters probably for the remainder of the game. See how it goes.
Here's Emery now. Yeah, Oliver's starting to flex his muscles a little bit here. And yes, he does. I have our deck list in front of us. You can, of course, take a look at that on the coverage page or on Cardboard Live as well. And Oliver, yes, he does have 4 copies of Oko in his deck, so we do apologize for the error on the deck list graphic. With the deck not having Oko in it when we were going over it. Of course he has Oko. He's playing blue and green cards.
So Tomajko trying to make a trade here. Astrolabe for Hierarch.
Little swapsies. I like a swapsies. Gonna path his own creature. Alright. That's one less path you have to worry about if you're Oliver. I'm sure Zach would have liked to path the, for example, Emery.
Right. But, you know, He's just not going to have enough resources to play. You can't, if you're in Alan's position, you can't really be concerned too much about the short term or the long term implications of just about anything right now, because in the short term, just beating the Oko is going to be hard enough.
Yes. That I can agree with you on. That card is it's a lot.
Emery's a problem for another day. You know what I mean? It's the Oko you got to try to find some way to win the battle over. That ship might have already sailed. Oko is going to start going up to a ton of loyalty, and Tomajko has a lot of chump blockers to work with, even if Alan's able to sneak in, a stray flash creature to try to threaten the Planeswalker. So it's going to be trouble.
Well, Zach's got all his colors of mana now. In combination with the Astrolabe, mana should not really be much of a problem here for our RIW player. There's another snow-covered island. To go with the snow-covered plain, snow-covered forest, the Astrolabe, and now here is his own Oko. That's a way to at least try to start catching back up. This has turned into the Oko Players' Championship very quickly.
Yeah, that card is certainly present.
That just means these gents, they get it.
Yeah, they got the memo.
Yeah. Elk ya. And it looks like Gilded Goose is going to jump in front of that elk because Oliver would like to keep his own Oko, which makes a lot of sense. There's a Path to Exile on Emery. All right, so Zach had a second Path to Exile.
Good job playing catch-up here from Alan.
I think he's done a nice job this turn.
Yeah, he's, again, not out of the clear, and Tomajko's going to have a lot of mana and resources to work with, but he's at least got some presence on the battlefield now that can't just be trivialized by Oko.
So we're going to head back over to Tomajko, who's got that active Oko. Couple of lands, an Astrolabe, and a Gilded Goose. So we'll see what the young man wants to do next. As he is off to another impressive run here on the SCG Tour. Made it through his first pod pretty easily to put himself directly into the battle for Buy's pod. So he's already locked up day number 2 of competition. Now he wants to lock up a buy for day number 2 and make his path to day 3 that much easier. That's the entire goal right now. He'll play an Emery, Urza, Spell Queller, Mox, and a Polluted Delta will head to the graveyard. That Astrolabe is going to become an elk via the Oko. Now, will that elk go on the offense? Or will it hang back on defense?
Well, if you attack, it seems likely you're committed to a chump block, and I don't know how effectively you're going to be able to threaten Alan's Oko over the course of a couple turns. But I think trying to keep the Oko off of the swap power is a big part of all of this, too.
Mm-hmm. Because that one can't be understated.
And, Tomajko's kind of got an advantage on the other resources of the game here. So if he can zero out both Okos, that's probably a stronger position for him than both players controlling an Oko.
The Stoneforge Mystic here for Zach. He's going to go searching for an equipment in his Bant Snowblade deck.
Keep in mind, Tomajko with 3 main deck copies of Metallic Rebuke here, so Alan trying to sequence the Stoneforge Mystic in such a way that it can't be tagged by a mana leak.
There'll be a Sword and Feast and Famine there for Oliver Tomajko to take a look at. That'll be going to Zach Allen's hand right now, the pro-green, pro-black sword. That, of course, gives +2/+2 like all the swords do. But when that one hits you, your opponent discards a card, and you get to untap all of your lands. Which means you're basically getting double the mana each turn. Now Oko is going to turn Emery into an elk, so that problem appears to be solved. Gilded Goose is going to make food. So 2 food on the battlefield there for Oliver. He's going to untap those lands and those cards. He'll draw a card. We'll see what he wants to do on this, I believe, his 6th turn of the game.
Tomajko really paid off for that attack with the Elk the previous turn. I thought it might have been a shade on the aggressive side here, but now Alan holding back his Elk, and he's got an Oko remaining at 3 loyalty and Tomajko with 2 Elks queued up. Combat's going to look really good for Tomajko regardless of if Alan has a trick or not.
Hallowed Fountain's going to enter the battlefield untapped there for Oliver. He'll go towards Emery once again. And that's going to resolve. So 4 cards headed to the graveyard. Witching Well is 1. Oko, Astrolabe, and Bauble all headed to the bin. Interesting to note that he decided to lose the new Embry because the current Embry is a 3/3. I'm a little surprised by that.
I'm not. I think, again, Tomajko's position is so good if he can get rid of Alan's Oko because he's ahead on so many other resources in the game. And you're down the Emery, and that's a little bit painful, but you're getting the Oko off the battlefield, and having a 3/3 left over as a consolation prize is not that bad.
Well, then I ask you, why play the Emery at all? There had to be a reason. I don't think he does things on accident.
I don't know. Is there something that he can spike off of a mill there?
I guess so. Here's one thing I think he was thinking. If I play this and he spell quellers it, I'm totally fine with that because it taps him out for the entire turn. If he tries to interact with it some way as though I want to keep this one,
right?
That's why I think he did that the way that he did it, which looked a little bit strange. It makes me wonder if he's happy with that exchange. There's Icefang Kotal. So that's going to come in. Plenty of snow permanents on the battlefield. So Zach gets to draw a card, and that thing's got Death Touch, of course.
But this is not a bad spot for Tomajko regardless, because either Alan is going to block with everything, including Stoneforge Mystic Chump, and then have nothing to do with the equipment without a creature, or he's got to let the Oko go. So kind of a win-win there. Alan realizing it's not really tenable in the long term to try to protect this Oko. He needs creatures on the battlefield regardless to try to do something with his equipment, and so he's just got to let that attack through.
Yeah, he decided to part ways. So Oko's going to bite the dust. Now you see the battlefield here for Zach Allen. 5 lands. A 3/3 Elked Arkham's Astrolabe, an Icefang Kotal, and a Stoneforge Mystic, and we know that he's got Sword of Feast and Famine in hand, so he could take the risk of equipping the sword right now and trying to hit, making Oliver discard one of his 2 cards. That's definitely an option right now.
And getting all the mana back.
Yes. That could be a fairly attractive line of play. But Zach Allen's got a lot to think about on this particular turn.
So if that play last turn from Tomajko was a bluff with the Emery, that comes at a pretty major opportunity cost.
That's what I'm thinking.
Because if that Elk dies, you're freed up all of a sudden.
Your Emery's back on. Yeah, your new one is back to being a really powerful card.
And you're brawling the games, you're brawling over Planeswalkers. There's a bunch of 3/3s on the battlefield. It's not inconceivable that card could trade off at some point, and then you have an Emery to rebuild with. So.
Oh, we're going to go back over to Oliver now. He still does have an Oko on the battlefield. He's got a ton of food tokens too. I mean, Oliver's plan could be very simple here, which is I'm just going to keep making 3/3s and keep attacking you with them. The bad news here for Oliver is that if Zach has Batterskull,
yep,
it goes badly. And you saw Zach on his turn. Look, he's left up all of his mana. He could have put in Sword of Feast and Famine. He chose not to. And I think if you're Oliver, you might be saying to yourself, I really can't play around Batterskull, so I'm just going to come in here and hope for the best.
I mean, it's suspicious, but again, what are you going to do? And you're seeing one of the vulnerabilities of the Urza decks on display. They just don't have a ton of live cards. It's a lot of setup. You have Emery as a way to kind of grind through extra cards with one of your baubles, and then you have Oko and Urza, and the deck does have a habit in some games of just flooding out with not that much in the way of good cards. Alan's deck is just chock full of stuff that works and stuff that's powerful on its own. And if Tomajko can't resolve one of his marquee cards, we're just playing, my second tier of cards against your second tier of cards, it has a massive advantage in that sort of game.
Well, bad news here for Tomajko. Batterskull has shown up, as has former Invitational champion Alex Bostecki, who is our germ token around these parts. And there's some blocking to be done right now if you're Zach Allen, or at least you hope you get the opportunity to.
Allen has done an excellent job of negotiating through Tomajko's turn to Oko on the play. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not like the Oko's off the battlefield. Allen is not out of it just yet, but his position's good, and it's going to be tricky for Tomajko to protect the Oko going forward.
Well, it's only getting more difficult, too. So here come your blocks. Kotal will do some trading. Kotal's done a nice job this game, of course, drawing a card. So this all looks pretty darn good. Spellqueller took care of the Cryptic command, and now Zach Allen's really starting to run away with this. You took your contrarian pick. You felt that Zach Allen and Matthew Dilks would win this round.
It's one game.
Yep, it is. It is only one game. This is true. But it's one that's looking very good for Zach Allen. And now we get to go Sword of Feast and Famine.
Super cool.
That can finish off the Oko, or you can put it over there, however you want to do it. There's a way this turn ultimately to say finish off Oko, hit you with sword, make you discard a card, untap all of my lands, which is the most important point here if you are Zach Allen. So there goes a card. Metallic Rebuke is the discard, and Zach Allen is very far ahead in this game now. Seems like he's pretty comfortable in this spot, too. Patrick, you've talked a couple times here this weekend so far about how he just loves himself a control strategy, and he's controlling quite a bit right now.
Oh, and now we got the combo here.
Yeah, one of your favorites.
Yes.
Now it looks like he's going to bounce the food token. That's an elk to draw a card, but he could have bounced Spellqueller and gotten that back and had the mana available, I believe, to Spellqueller or something else. But, boy, is he so far ahead already, he might not even have to make that play.
No, I think it's just better. This is also a really proactive play, and it sets up lethal for next turn.
Yeah, and that is going to do it. So Zach Allen's going to win game number one here over Oliver Tomajko. Bant Snowblade able to defeat a turn 2 Urza, truth be told, pretty easily.
A turn 2 Oko on the play there from Tomajko with other stuff. Other stuff. That wasn't the end of it. But Allen was able to resolve his own Oko, make the battlefield a little gummed down for a couple of turns. Tomajko did not find one of his payoff cards. And, Allen's sort of secondary wave of stuff there, much, much better than Tomajko's.
Yeah, pretty impressive. Able to get that W, what appeared to be fairly easily there for Zach Allen. So we go to the sideboard. We'll start with Tomajko, who's got 4 Damping Spheres, 4 Path to Exile, 2 Ashiok Dreamrender, 2 Pithing Needle, 2 Veil of Summer, and a Teferi Time Raveler.
I mean, you can make a case here for Veil of Summer and the Path as well. I don't know if there's enough searching to be done for Ashiok to get over the line here. Teferi Time Raveler's fine in this matchup too. Allen's got a lot of attractive stuff to bounce and plays a lot on Tomajko's turn.
Other side of things here for ZA, he's got 2 on Thin Ice, 2 Veil of Summer, 2 Mystical Dispute, 2 Rest in Peace. Singletons are Ceremonious Rejection, Damping Sphere of his own. Disdainful Stroke, Winds of Abandon, which we saw him use the big mode on that one earlier and win. A Detention Sphere, a Sword of Fire and Ice, and a Lone Supreme Verdict.
So I like Mystical Dispute in this matchup. Tomajko's payoff cards are largely blue, and so it's very efficient there. I like Supreme Verdict in this matchup too. If Tomajko can't get a Planeswalker to stick, he ultimately does have to just put a creature or 2 on the battlefield and try to leverage an advantage that way. The deck is prone to flooding out if the marquee cards are handled. And so even though it's not the most intuitive thing, Allen's got way more creatures in the deck than Tomajko. He's probably the aggressor of the two. I think Supreme Verdict can get Zach Allen out of some jams here. And as one copy of the card, it's not coming at the highest opportunity cost.
Well, those are the options there for both players, and we're going to be underway here in game number 2 in just a moment. Well, first I want to talk about the StarCityGames.com YouTube page, where you can go and watch replays of this tournament, all of our SCG Tour events, Versus Live with Ross Merriam and Corey Baumeister, Commander Versus with Jeremy Knoll, Justin Parnell, Jonathan Suarez, and Stephen Green. They're actually hanging out at Commander Fest DC this weekend, so they're not joining us here at the Star City Game Center in Roanoke, unfortunately. Flashback series that we have filmed over the years, and a whole bunch more. Subscribe today at youtube.com/StarCityGames. Become one of over 170,000 subscribers. Thanks to each and every single one of you as we work our way through even more of the Players' Championship here today. Day number 1 of competition is rockin' and a rollin' as we're watching Zach Allen do his thing right now. Loves a control deck, doesn't he?
He does. Can we cut some promos? I've got some suggestions. Alternate promos.
Okay.
All right. So flashback. You get a person of interest. down, you show them pictures, and they narrate them.
Yeah, I know what the program is.
Great. And we also have Versus Live, where 2 people compete against each other and you videotape.
I also know that program.
Okay, so we could do that, but we flip it. You have one person, Bobby Fischer, Versus Live match. They play both sides of the same matchup. And then we do a new video series called Flashbacks. You and I can do the first one.
Okay.
Where I sit down and I have your memories put in front of me and vice versa, and we attempt to narrate what the person thinks about it.
Wow.
How does that sound?
Because
I spoke to you many years ago, way before we were doing any of this. I spent one Gen Con sort of just railbirding you as you played in a variety of horrible side events. And I had this idea for a tournament report where I would follow your matches and I would write as though I was you. Like, what do I believe you're thinking in this moment?
You've never told me about this idea.
Yeah, I told Tim Ayton. He thought it was brilliant, but I never actually ran it over to you.
I mean, I love it.
But Flashbacks videos,
I love it.
Where we take turns attempting to narrate each other's memories. That could be some high art.
Between this and the mailbag, you are going to be busy,
I got so
busy.
many ideas.
You do. I know you do.
And so little follow-through.
That's
which is
true.
why
That's
I need to solicit the
that
help
part's,
of people with better work ethics. Like you, for example.
Yeah, like me? Yeah.
That's where you come in.
That part's a little disappointing, the inability to follow through. But that's okay. That's what other people are for.
Well, now with Sullivan Satchel, you know what? I'm running downhill. Just had to get the first one up there.
We got you going.
And you know what happened with the second one? I remember to turn it in.
Proud of you.
And now we're just running downhill.
Really
we're running downhill. That snowball, it's growing. Do the same thing with Flashbacks.
Really appreciate hitting the deadline on that. That was, it's probably one of the easiest columns to write, so I'm really glad you were able to do it. Answering questions.
Yeah, I mean, I could. You think that I couldn't churn out this is why I played 4 Okos at my last PTQ?
That's not what I said.
You don't think I could do that?
That's not what I said.
Flashbacks. Show me in front of other people's memories. That's the next wave.
This is like an episode of Minority Report going on here. Some scary stuff, honestly. But, I'm here for it. Tomajko off to a nice start. Goose, Emery, Bobble. Looks like Zach's going to have a response to this Emery, though. Is he's going to sacrifice a Misty Rainforest. Looks like a breeding pool enters the battlefield untapped. Zach going to fall down to 17.
I believe we have a mystical dispute on its way.
That would be my guess. And that is true. So we're going to go back over to Zach Allen, who elected to leave mana up for Mystical Dispute as opposed to playing a Noble Hierarch on turn 1.
Well, Tomajko's got a bunch of powerful blue cards to cast in that spot. Emery and Oko.
And he's going to be able to catch back up right away by deploying a Birds of Paradise. Crack a fetch land. We'll see what land he wants to go grab. It's going to be a snow-covered forest. As Allen falls down to 16. And if he does deploy that Noble Hierarch this turn, then he's caught back up in a very big way. And there's that Noble Hierarch. So a very calculated move there from Zach Allen. As there's a Mishra's Bauble there from Oliver Tomajko, who will take a look at the top card of his deck. Apparently doesn't like it, so he's going to sacrifice the Polluted Delta, shuffle that top card away, getting a land out of his deck in the process. And then he'll be drawing 2 cards in his turn, one from the Bauble Trigger, and of course, one for the draw step for the turn. These players are very much off to the races right now.
Let's see if Tomajko can follow up here with one of his good cards, because he just doesn't have that many in the deck. Believe his draw step was an Urza.
That would classify as a good card.
That's one of the,
Dare I say, one of the best cards. Michael's got to be thrilled with this draw step. He'd never show it with his facial expression. But not a bad draw step there for Oliver. There's your construct. Pass the turn back over to Zach Allen. We'll see how Zach Allen handles Urza now. He is a deck that does play copies of Path to Exile, so he does have clean answers to the card. Now there's the land. Matthias Hunt is our construct token, of course. And he has joined the battlefield here. And now Zach has just been landed. Is going to pass the turn back. Mana available. Perhaps representing Spell Queller, pardon me, or something else similarly powerful.
He could be easily representing 2 spells in this spot. It's got a lot of mana to work with.
Yeah, 5 mana in Modern. That's a lot of mana. That is a boatload of mana, trust me. Well, there's a goose. That'll bring another artifact along to the battlefield if it does resolve. And that's good. So now, looks like a mana short. Well, never mind. This will be 5 mana to spin the wheel. Zach will give it the goal head, it looks like. Perhaps he's going to respond with a Path on Urza. Okay. So he'll Path Urza now.
I would have preferred, I think, to see that in response to the Gilded Goose.
Response to the goose or the response to the food trigger.
Whichever. There was a spot to do this. And you've got so much mana up and so many reactive cards in your deck that I think the odds are really high that Tomajko's just going to say, you know what, I'm not going to try to actually cast something this turn. I'll just use Urza, and if he has a counterspell for what I spin off, it's not the biggest loss. You know, I think that's so likely to be Tomajko's line that you're not going to really trick him in that spot.
Well, Zach's going to float a little bit of mana from his Noble Hierarch being exiled via Path to Exile. So he's got a little bit of mana floating at this moment. Not sure if he has a follow-up or not. And it looks like he may, and it'll be a Kodal. So, he'll draw a card from the Ice Fang. And he will untap and draw a card for his turn. Now, Zach Allen is playing Snowblade, not Urza, so you're not going to find any Urzas here. But some Planeswalkers like Oko and Teferi or Stoneblade Mystic, you'll find those, as there's the Kodal going to come across for 1. But it doesn't look like he has any of those great cards just yet. In fact, these players want to make sure they have life totals correct here before moving forward, so it's always good to communicate with each other and make sure you're happy in that regard. So they'll take a moment to do that and then move forward with this game. We're going to head back over to Oliver now. A little bit behind now that he doesn't have an Urza anymore. And, you know, one thing that you have pointed out during this match is rang pretty true, which is the Bant Urza deck, as powerful as it is, doesn't have a lot of payoff cards.
Yeah, I mean, you can get some really explosive openings, and there's sometimes where Urza just makes it easy mode. But, you know, if we get into spots like this, where you're not generating a bunch of extra cards with Emery, you have only 10 or 11 cards in the deck that are of substance. The rest of it's just mana and cantrips. A couple counter spells, but
Mystic Sanctuary going to come down. Now Zach is just going to deploy a Spell Queller. Maybe that's a little bit surprising. Nothing to counter there, and then he'll sacrifice the Horizon Canopy to draw a card. So he'll untap, and now will Zach, after getting a 2/3 on the battlefield, draw a card and keep rocking and rolling.
So that suggests that Alan's hand is just full of spells.
Yes.
Because you would only use a Spell Queller in that spot if you felt like you were likely to be tapping out on a bunch of subsequent turns. So Tomajko's got to be aware of that. I'm sure he is, that Alan's hand's got to be loaded.
Well, we're going to put you to the test right now, Patrick, that theory, because here is an Urza, and there is a Spell Queller. I would hope he has at least one to take care of that card. Otherwise, running that last one out there, that other one previously, excuse me, doesn't seem all that smart. Oh, this is adorable. So this is Spell Queller, trigger on the stack, I'm going to eat your thing, which means it's exiled forever.
Right. This prevents Alan from having to do something to protect the Spell Queller going forward. You've just gotten rid of the Urza altogether.
Well, there you go.
Even if Alan's hand was really tight on mana, I still don't know how I feel about just playing the Spellcaller here. It's so hard to damage race in the face of these two Gilded Geese that I don't know how valuable it is to having the 2/3. Even if your hand is jammed up, it feels like that's got to be a bit more valuable than using your mana efficiently. But I guess we'll see.
Well, if I'm Zach, the one piece to the puzzle that I'm kind of missing right now is an equipment.
Yeah.
Preferably Sword of Feast and Famine as we head back over to Oliver Tomajko. He'll draw a card. Right now his Construct is a 4/4. It could grow at any moment because Gilded Geese can pump out artifacts. And there's Ice Fang Kotal. I'll take that. That'll draw a card. Getting in difficult here for Oliver. There's your trade. But Zach's actually ahead on cards there. Now there's Witching Well, which isn't so bad.
Tomajko would pretty gladly pay 5 mana right now to draw 2 cards and scry a little bit.
Well, there's Spellcaller number 3. We had a feeling he had at least one more, but not too surprising to see the third copy get played this game either. Especially when Zach was aggressively pathing the other one with the effect on the stack.
Yeah.
I think that's your dead giveaway about how things are going. So we are going to head back over to Zach now. And he's tapping a lot of mana on his main phase right now. What for? I said earlier, sword would be a good place to be, and there is a sword.
Yep, Alan's just got to be mindful of, Tomajko's stray outs here. Not a whole lot of cards that are irrelevant. I guess the biggest concern in the abstract is engineered explosives.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not clear if Alan can really play around that in any sort of meaningful way.
So Zach is going to play Sword of Feast and Famine, equip Sword of Feast and Famine, play Stoneforge Mystics, search for Sword of Fire and Ice, and then go to the attack step with the idea that this is all going to go totally fine. Attack, trigger the sword, make you discard all that jazz, and then ideally get to deploy Sword of Fire and Ice as well. And here's 5 mana, and there's your Sword of Fire and Ice in combination with Sword and Feast and Famine. Oliver Tomajko, you got about a turn, my friend.
It's drawing very heavy to explosives.
That is true. EE would be the place to be. EE on 3 would blow up swords and Quellers, and that would be outrageous. But has he drawn the powerful artifact? He's going to tap 3 mana. Well, that's a 3 mana spell. It doesn't take care of all the others, but it's not a bad place to start. So Oka is going to slow down Sword of Feast and Famine by turning it into an elk. So we're going to head back over to Zach Allen, it looks like, here in just a moment. Still a very favorable position here for Zach, but now these Gilded Geese, plural, are going to be in the way, looking to do a little bit of blocking.
Yeah, I mean, Alan can try to just run down Oko this turn. It gives you, I guess, a little bit of a hedge against engineered explosives.
Interesting thing here, and if you do want to run down Oko, or if you just want to go over to Tomajko's, Tomajko's life total. Tomajko's only at 4.
I mean, Tomajko's in much more tenuous position trying to protect his life total at this point than the Oko, and you really don't do anything relevant by whittling down the Oko over time. So my guess is that Alan is just going to dial up a major attack on Tomajko here.
There are concerns about Oko. It's -5, doing a little swap around, all of that jazz. Especially with those, looks like 5 food tokens staying out on the battlefield. So I'll be curious to see where Zach does choose to attack here, as he's sending in with all of his creatures, not scared of anything. And he has no reason to be. Tomajko's first block will be Birds of Paradise on a Spellcaller that has a Sword of Feast and Famine. We'll see if he cares to tender another one. I have to imagine that he will. But perhaps not. Perhaps he just says, I will Sack a food token, gain 3 life, go up to 7, lose my Gilded Goose. Then take 3, 4, 5, 6. I think he may just fall down to 1. And there's a Noble Hierarch post-combat. Well, EE for 3, still alive.
Yep.
Can Tomajko find it? That's the big question. Well, that elk is now a food, and we are... Ooh. Oh, now this gets very interesting. What is going on here? You know, one card... So, one card comes to mind that he may have drawn. Cryptic Command. And if he can sneak in these 3, then he can command, tap the team, draw a card.
And then get in for 6.
And then Oko something else and get in for exactly 6. That's what comes to mind right now. He does have 3 main deck copies of Cryptic Command. There's a block from Zach Allen with the Birds of Paradise.
Very sharp block there from Allen.
Yeah. Tomajko's going to just pass the turn back. It's a sneaky play there for Tomajko. There's Cryptic. Oh, that's why both of these players are playing in our year-end tournament. 2 of the SCG Tour's absolute best. As now, Allen, with a Path Exile in hand, will continue on with his turn, knowing that there is no attacking to be done. He does have a Path Exile in hand. And there's a Teferi. Now that's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, there some pretty major advantages are coming along with this. One of them is locking out the possibility of a defensive Cryptic Command again next turn from Tomajko.
Can't undersell that. That's the only reason Tomajko is really alive right now. Teferi is going to bounce that elk token. That was a food, so no harm, no foul there. That's gone.
And Allen's last card in hand, besides the card he just drew, is Path to Exile. So if Tomajko goes ahead and dials up and turns something into an elk and tries to attack again, Allen can cover it with the Path. The Teferi is unassailable, and then you're in the clear for the next turn.
Mr. Sullivan, it's looking more like that contrarian pick is.
Catching up. Catching up.
Yep. That food token's an elk. We're going beatdowns to take care of Teferi. And now here is the Path to Exile. Cannot let that Teferi die. So a land is on the way, and do keep in mind there are 3 food tokens on the battlefield there for Tomajko, so I wouldn't say this game is over just yet by any stretch of the imagination. When you've got 3 food tokens to sacrifice, that gives you 9 new life.
Explosives is still a major draw here, too.
It is still very, very good. I totally agree. Honestly, it appears to only be getting better, and he may have drawn it. Okay, Oliver Tomajko is fighting back in this game. I'll tell you what. He'll blow up the EE. He's going to lose his Oko, but Zach Allen's going to lose Spell Quellers. He'll lose Teferi. He'll lose Sword of Feast and Famine and Fire and Ice. Now he's left with just a Stoneforge Mystic, and for Tomajko, he got his Witching Well back, which means he gets to scry too. It's a land and a Spell Queller, so the land will go to the bottom, the Spell Queller will go to the hand. There's a land for the turn there for Tomajko. He's empty-handed, but he's come more or less all the way back.
Yeah, I mean, the battlefield definitely favors him. He's got a draw 2 in play, a bunch of food to work with for more cushion.
Stoneforge Mystic going to come across for 2. Gilded Goose is going to block that right away. And now if you are Zach Allen, you're wondering, what do I got to do to win this game? As Oliver Tomajko just draws and passes. Tomajko at 2. Might be falling down to 1 because of the fetch here. We'll get that confirmed as well. And he is down to 1. Mystic Sanctuary. Trigger. Something's going to go on top of the deck. Almost certainly going to be Cryptic Command. So there goes Cryptic Command back on top. And now we'll sacrifice the Witching Well. So not 1, but 2 cards. And sacrifice a food. Tomajko using all of his mana on the end of Zach Allen's turn. He's up to 4, is young Oliver Tomajko. Player that qualified for this tournament during Season 1 of the SCG Tour and decided, you know what, I still just want to keep playing some Magic. I have no interest in stopping. Racked up even more wins. And helped some of his friends and teammates get into this tournament as well.
So Alan knows there's no point in trying to cast anything right now. So he's just going to pass in the face of that Cryptic Command. The question is, can he force Tomajko to do something with the Cryptic by just attacking with the Stoneforge Mystic over the next couple of turns?
That's going to be tough.
Tomajko is out of food and doesn't have a lot of life to work with.
Mr. Rainforest there for Oliver. Mox Ult will pass the turn back. Zach is going to sacrifice that fetch land.
No question that's a big win for Alan here if he can force Tomajko to tap and draw a card defensively from just the Stoneforge Mystic attack at some point. If not this turn, the next.
It's a good goal to have. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's a good goal to have. Zach's got to be thinking to himself, what do I got to do to put this kid down? Don't have much damage left to get over, but the food mechanic is causing some trouble, of course, as it oftentimes does. Oko caused some trouble. And Zach doesn't have a lot of gas left in the tank, I will mention that. Now, here is Spell Queller. Nothing to eat with Spell Queller, but it is a 2/3 flash flyer, staring down a 2/3 ground attacker.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, this counts. I mean, again, Tomajko having to use one of his marquee pieces in a modest spot. It's not what you would like to do with a Spell Queller here, but he's got to do something at some point. If it's not the Spell Queller, it's the Cryptic Command, and now we're at neutral with Tomajko having a Cryptic Command and the burden being on Alan to cast something.
a couple of tough draw steps there for Zach Allen. He picked up at least 1 copy of Mana Leak, which...
Mana Leak.
As we know, thank you, as we know, gets worse as the game goes.
Yes.
Now, doesn't mean it's entirely off. There may be some situations where it is turned back on, but for the most part, it's a dead draw.
Well, the second Mana Leak, and now you're cooking. Because you can maybe fight over a Cryptic Command at some point.
Good multiples, huh?
They do stack in a certain way.
There's a land. Let's see what this is. On Thin Ice. Well, now we're getting really creative, aren't we? Is this cryptic? It is.
Let's see some Mana Leaks.
You want to see some plural?
Mana Leaks.
Plural leaks? Well, we have a request. I got bad news. It's Force Negation instead there, bud.
Yeah, that's disappointing. That card just works.
Well, you want to talk about working? Veil of Summer. Banned in Standard, banned in Pioneer, very legal here in Modern. That's a beating.
Mana Leak.
You meant... Well,
Here we go.
You may get what you asked for. Leak. Tomajko will think about paying before he elects to do so. All right. Mystical Dispute. Hard cast on the Veil. Mm-hmm. Don't let him draw. All right, so Zach wins the counter war. Spell Queller on Thin Ice.
It's a big Mana Leak.
Yep. And now, hiya! In for 2. Tomajko down to 1. Can't crack that fetch, Oliver. We're going to head his way. He needs a big draw right now. What did he find? He's got a lot of reactive elements in his hand, and he'll concede the game. Zach Allen's going to win this game and match her over Oliver Tomajko. 2-0. Bant